Thank you very much for joining us for the midday news. My name is Marco Kwakozi. The headlines. A village headman in Central Province allegedly defiles a 14-year-old girl. The UPND challenged to take responsibility over the issue of cadres. And in international news, Sudanese refugees in Libya ask the UN for help. And in sports news, Zambia in our Tarewa Association hosts traditional lunch for Copper Queens. For details of these and other stories, join us shortly after this break.
Umwana na nyina ingana bakutuluka uwinge bo munankwateka sambenani mwe ipisha ina ipisha abo mwikere nabo.
Welcome back, and another news in detail. A general worker of Ndalama village in Mungule chiefdom of Chiwombo district has called for the arrest of a 60-year-old man he accuses of defiling and impregnating his 14-year-old daughter. The father of 6 says the suspect, who is village headman identified as Ndalama, allegedly defiled his daughter in August of 2022, but no arrest has been made despite the matter being reported to the police. The victim's father claims in an interview that the family has suffered a double tragedy due to the failure by the police to enforce the arrests. Meanwhile, the 42-year-old man has also accused his 36-year-old wife of working together with the headman to bury the matter. Here's a report.
A home is usually regarded as a safe haven for children, but it was not so. For 14-year-old Faith Tembo, not her real name, has her alleged defiler followed her right into her father's house when no one was at home. It was during the day in August 2022 when the victim, while at home, was allegedly abused. According to the victim's father, he accuses the village headman, a Mr. Ndalama, who is believed to be in his 60s, with 3 wives, of being behind the alleged act. Not only was his 14-year-old daughter defiled but impregnated too, unfortunately lost the baby due to complications.
In fact, ni chikuru nizofuna kuti niziwe nangankani pamene ende anipana pamene iperera nipata nangusira inasira bwanji kuti nkhali chezi until today oro kapena kusira isira bwanji nkhali niziwe kaikasiridwe kankhani kuti kani zasira bwanji because guys nankhalepo nawo sanchizipo nawo and futi kulibe any reaction amene chitika konse kuli mapepani nawanda pasoni nzoenda kwamene uja kunaweza ita direct kuti wakanitandizireko ndizibe nkhani kuti nanga nkhani isira bwanji.
This family of Ndalama village in Mungule chiefdom in Chiwombo district near Lusaka has stayed for almost a year without seeing any action taken against the man who allegedly abused their daughter, despite the matter being reported to the police. The 42-year-old general workers also accused his 36-year-old wife of working together with the alleged abuser in order to bury the case. He alleges that his wife took off with their daughter to Siavonga district without his knowledge.
So mukona kwanu mbona munga wakazi wanu wezipana pants na wamena wa suspect man impact wa shike drop mulani watawe no mwana wapanje.
Ndiye kuganiza wangu. Ndiye kuganiza wangu. Kwa chama chingine zote niganize so. Kwa face pamene wanaenda unaitaje wotabisha kwenda naye na siana gura konse ku school kuti mwana ndi school beva mtenga wenda naye. Then hapa futi wa bwedi so nafuna kuti wankale kuti very way forward nkani endera pandi futi wamutenga futi watawana futi waenda naye. So ndiye minister suspect pamene hapa.
In a separate interview, a twin sister to the victim is now pleading with the authorities to find the alleged abuser and ensure he faces the law for destroying a sister's future dreams.
Tiemba nao pamoja grade 7 nani mchimani wa maningi mafuna mpundu mzanga nzilemba naye grade 7 mwa mwenyembera ine na mwewalembera bana bawo mwewangale bana bawo naye sindiye mwetifuni ya itinkalire so chabe tinkalire mameti na gulizirana ndiye mwetifuna utitinkalire kozi na bebe bakuje sinzi bakuja pano odwala apena chabebu ino sinzi bakuja kweyaliri mamina ali naye ni mchimani wa maningi nikaganira mafana naye zakalembe.
Meanwhile, Concerned Citizen for Justice and Human Rights has pledged to help the family get justice on the matter.
We need to arrest this man with immediate effect because the arrest defiler is aged between 60 and above. So we cannot allow such a situation to continue happening in the nation, and we cannot allow as organization to sweep such cases under the carpet. We are very disappointed.
Child development cases have been on the rise in recent years. Various stakeholders are now calling for lawmakers to ensure that the offense become a non-bailable or bondable charge. Miriam Kaimba, reporting for Camnet TV News.
The Media Network on Child Rights and Development Executive Director Henry Kawe has called on the government to apply similar standards so as to ensure that children in rural areas enjoy the same benefits that come from government on equal basis. In an interview with Camnet News, Mr. Kawe notes that the unbalanced supply of public services is a problem that all countries need to solve, and this imbalance is especially prominent between urban and rural areas. Mr. Kabwe says the unbalanced development in Zambia's rural areas is still severe, clearly reflecting in the income gap, infrastructure construction, medical security, and social security. Meanwhile, pupils in Shangombo district have called for equal distribution of resources, adding that there is no way they can be subjected to a pit latrine, while those in urban areas have flushable toilets in schools. Here's a report.
The unbalanced supply of public services is a problem that all countries need to solve, and this imbalance is especially prominent between urban and rural areas. Stakeholders say the imbalanced development in Zambia's rural areas is still severe, as reflected in the infrastructure constructions, medical security and social security. By 2030, Zambia aims to transform into a prosperous middle-income nation. Media Network on Child Rights and Development Executive Director Henry Kawe says that can only be achieved if the government applies similar standards so as to ensure that children in the rural areas enjoy the same benefits that come from the government on equal basis. He has expressed concern that government prioritize the urban-rural areas by building schools and health facilities which have flushable toilets, while in the rural areas they are subjected to pit latrines. In Shangombo district in Western Province, health facilities visited by this reporter are seen to have pit latrines, while in the urban areas, for example Lusaka, the situation is different as all the hospitals have flushable toilets.
You find that money from the same Ministry of Finance is released to the Ministry of Health, it's released to the Ministry of Education to build schools. The same government will build schools or health facilities which has flushable toilets in urban areas and build health facilities with pit latrines. Imagine, we are talking about health. That's the Ministry of Health erecting a clinic which has a pit latrine, which is promoting unhealthy behavior. So we expect government to apply similar standards. Are we saying rural people are less human? Are we saying rural people are not supposed to enjoy the benefits that come from government on an equal basis?
School children in Shangombo district are now calling for equal distribution of resources, adding that there is no way they can be subjected to a pit latrine, while those in the urban areas have flushable toilets in schools.
We need equal distribution because
a person from the rural area and a person from the urban area, we are all the same, we are equal, and our health matters. So I might say that the services offered in urban areas are the services which need to be offered in the rural areas and the health centers.
We deserve to have equal rights and as well as development. Yeah, so I would tell them to at least develop the health facilities, especially with toilets, because you find that a lot of different people use those toilets, and for us to be using pit latrines, you find that even diseases will be spread widely, because some people are ignorant in terms of sanitation.
United Health and Allied Workers Union of Zambia President Daniel Mwimbe also calls for equal distribution of resources and development.
We need to make sure that distribution of supplies is as equal as here, including the infrastructural development that we need to put there. The clinics, if you go to some of the clinics, you feel sorry because they are still dilapidated. So we need just to invest much in there, and we are hopeful, like I've mentioned, we are hopeful that since government embarked on the decentralization process of ensuring that more resources are taken to the rural areas, which has come with this new government, and also the devolution of ensuring those functions that were being done by the central government are being decentralized, we are hopeful that the rural area at least will start receiving as much attention as the urban areas.
Miriam Kaimba reporting for Camnet TV News.
The Opposition Patriotic Front Acting Media Director Edwin Lifwekelo has described as unfortunate and misleading statements by the governing United Party for National Development UPND purporting that the PF has unleashed cadres to harass citizens in communities, bus stations and markets. Earlier this week, UPND Lusaka Province Chairman Obvious Mwaliteta charged that the PF had released cadres to cause confusion. Mr. Lifwekelo says the allegations are an indication of UPND's failure to take responsibility. He questions how the PF can have the strength to conduct acts of illegality under the watch of the UPND government. Here's a report.
Discussions on the reemergence of lawlessness have taken center stage as Zambians cannot comprehend the thought of having political party cadres again taking over the running of public facilities such as markets and bus stations. Earlier this week, United Party for National Development UPND Lusaka Province Chairman Obvious Mwaliteta accused the Opposition Patriotic Front of sponsoring its cadres to infiltrate the UPND and leading them to conducting illegal activities.
When we received those complaints, we had gone on the ground to investigate in Chantichitikapa ground. We came to discover that it's the desperation of PF. PF have now gone back in the streets. Batenga mayuthi bao na kubauza kuti UPND is very peaceful. No one will harass you. Endani mwende ma stations, endani ma roads, start mounting ma road blocks, illegal road blocks, so that bantu baone kuti UPND now is misbehaving.
We asked PF Acting Media Director Edwin Lifwekelo, who in his response wondered how a political party that is in opposition can have the audacity to indulge in acts of impunity under the watch of a government that prides itself as an administration accredited to the rule of law. He adds that the UPND must take responsibility of alleged poor leadership.
Our job is not to bring mayhem in society. Our job is not to unleash youths on the street, because that will be on our part a very irresponsible act for us to imagine that we can unleash youth who tomorrow will be arrested. They'll be alone there with their parents in the cells and suffering, and me as a leader, I will have that audacity to really take youth to the street to go and mount roadblocks just because I want to cause problems to this government. No. I think that our bantu na abafirwa, what they need to do, if they have failed to run government, let them call for fresh elections. If they have failed to run government, let them resign from their position and allow competent people to run those positions. And that has been our cry. And our position is you cannot procrastinate and accuse us that we are sending our youths there when you are the one who is in government.
And Mr. Lifwekelo is saddened over the resignation of Auditor General Dick Sichembe.
Extremely professional, worked extremely hard to ensure that even when he operated under PF, a number of audit reports to the corruption that could have happened when we were in government were reported and they're in the public domain. And we fear that those investigations that Dick Sichembe had started beyond 2021, they might just be thrown under the bus, and Zambians will not be able to know the truth. So it's a very serious, sad day for Zambia. Dark cloud is hovering over his resignation. Yes, he has his own right to resign, but ultimately we know the same way the DPP was hounded out of office, the same way the Auditor General has been hounded out of office. It's a trend, it's a pattern by the UPND, because they want to bring their own people who would run, who will be directed, who will be given instructions to do this and that, because basically that's what we are seeing. We can only assume that that's why he has been forced to resign.
Patrick Soko, Camnet News in Lusaka.
The Human Rights Commission has urged those facing human rights violations to always engage the Commission as opposed to rushing to social media. Recently, Patriotic Front aspiring presidential candidate Emmanuel Mwamba complained of violations during his arrest and while in detention at Emersdale Police Station. But Commission spokesperson Mwelwa Mulea tells Camnet News that his organization does not comment on issues without establishing the authenticity to avoid jeopardizing the reputation of the institution. He underscored the need for people to be making formal complaints to the institution charged with the responsibility of safeguarding human rights.
Commission investigates cases of human rights violations. Whether someone has reported a case, or we've heard about it, or someone has come. But what's important for those victims of human rights is to cooperate with the Human Rights Commission. Bring evidence as we are investigating the matter. In social media, it's very difficult for us to start condemning what we have heard on social media before we establish the facts, because we've got integrity to protect as an institution, that we are a constitutional body. What we bring out should be watertight in terms of the evidence that has been obtained through investigations. We don't rush to start speaking in most cases before we investigate the case, because in some cases we can tell that they are not verified allegations, and that can in future jeopardize our reputation to have just and also we are able to see through some narrative which are being created that the condemnation is aimed at rendering credence to some allegations. That we always refrain from doing. We want to do thorough work, investigate, have evidence. Where we are talking about acts of torture, we need medical evidence to establish those facts, but also that we can talk to various players and then we make our own observations and recommendations. So people must be formal in terms of lodging complaints, and when they lodge the complaint, if we lodge a complaint with one institution, then you rush to another institution, and then you go to court. If you take a matter to court, the Human Rights Commission will stop investigating the matter, because by law we are not supposed to deal with a matter that is actively being dealt by the courts of law.
Ministry of Information and Media Director spokesperson Tabo Kawana has charged that it is not correct for the Socialist Party to insinuate that President Hakainde Hichilema has come to the realization to go to China. Last week, Socialist Party leader Fred Membe said President Hakainde Hichilema has seen the need to engage China. But Mr. Kawana says the president was not going to undertake an abrupt trip to China, saying now that the president has an invitation, he will do so just like it has been in the case with other countries he has visited. Mr. Kawana says Zambia continues to enjoy cordial relations with China, as he alleges that Mr. Membe wants to create what he terms as a false narrative that President Hichilema is anti-China. Mr. Kawana says the government will not allow people to continue peddling lies against the government, especially on diplomatic matters, now that Zambia is in the League of Nations.
Between China and Zambia are very strong ties that span a very long time, starting with our forefathers, Chairman Mao and Dr. Kaunda. And they have remained strong and have only grown from strength to strength since then. It is also important to note that there is no acrimony between China and Zambia. There is none, there's never been any, and we do not foresee in the near future any at all. Right now the whole country is in jubilation when it comes to the partial withdrawal of the 20% under NAPSA. But all the people that worked under the character, when they go to NAPSA, they don't know them because they didn't even contribute NAPSA, failing to contribute statutory contributions. And today, many journalists, unfortunately, even when they go to NAPSA, they can't even access the 20% because there's nothing. The man did not contribute. So we just want to make it very clear to him that running a country is not an easy thing. And running a country is not as easy as running, for example, a newspaper that you failed to run and ran it down. Running a country is complex. It requires dedication. It requires somebody that knows what they are doing. You can't run a country based on vindictiveness, based on bitterness, based on hurt. Because what is clear is that we all know Membe never wanted President Hakainde Hichilema to become president in this country. We all know that Membe didn't want UPND to be a party in office in this country. This is orchestrated. Over the many years that he spent investing in his editorial comments, speaking badly about the UPND and its leadership.
The Center for Trade Policy and Development has challenged the Ministry of Agriculture to be clear on agricultural reforms being undertaken. The United Party for National Development, UPND, upon taking over office, had indicated that the Farmer Input Support Program, FISP, will be informed to a comprehensive agriculture support program, CASIP. But CTPD Executive Director Isaac Mwaipopo regrets that there has been little or no efforts to undertake reforms on the FISP and the Food Reserve Agency, as earlier assured.
President Hakainde Hichilema's United Party for National Development, upon taking over the wheels of power, among the key pronouncements was to undertake reforms and implement a new comprehensive agriculture support program commencing in the 2022-2023 farming season, claiming that the Farmers Input Support Program has presented challenges. The program to be implemented is said to be cost-effective, better targeted, and equitable across beneficiaries. But surprisingly, this has remained on paper, and last week, Agriculture Minister Ruben Piri told Parliament that during the 2023-2024 farming season, the government will continue with the Farmers Input Support Program, FISIP.
The government will continue to implement the Farmer Input Support Program, FISIP, in the 2022-2024 farming season. The total number of beneficiary farmers targeted, Madam Speaker, is 1,024,434. Small-scale farmers countrywide.
But Center for Trade Policy and Development Executive Director Isaac Mwaipopo has wondered why the government has not been able to implement the much talked about reforms. He regrets that he has urged the government to inform the nation at what stage the reforms are and be consultative on the process.
The confusing part about these reforms is that we've already started getting reports indicating that the delivery of farming inputs has started, and we are left to wonder whether this delivery is under the Comprehensive Agriculture Program or it's the same old system. It is our appeal from the Center for Trade Policy and Development that the Ministry of Agriculture should put its house in order, because the agriculture sector remains a very strategic sector towards contributing to the growth and development of our country, as well as the creation of the much-needed jobs. But looking at the way things have been handled, it remains quite disappointing, and there would be need for them to step up, open up, be more consultative, and clearly explain to the country what they are working towards.
Patrick Soko, Camnet News in Lusaka.
The Higher Education Authority Director General, Professor Stephen Simukanga, says education is not just about acquiring knowledge but nurturing young minds. Speaking when he officiated at the Chadley House School's 30th anniversary, Professor Simukanga hailed the school for contributing to delivering quality education. Professor Simukanga commended the school seeking excellence by equipping learners with the necessary skills needed to have a bright future. And Chadley School Board Chairman Patrick Chisanga says the institution will continue to strive in a bid to complement government efforts in delivering quality education. The ceremony was held under the theme 30 Years of Shaping Minds and Nurturing Bright Futures. Here's a report.
It was a momentous occasion for Chadley House School management, parents, teachers, pupils and former pupils who gathered to celebrate the school's 30 years anniversary. Young people participated in entertainment activities and speeches. Secondly, Chadley House School Board Chairman Patrick Chisanga says the institution will continue to strive in a bid to complement the government efforts in delivering quality education. He said in the last 30 years, the school has grown from having 5 pupils to over 1,000 pupils.
In the last 2 hours or so, this is the sort of thing people pay money to go and watch in the theater. Very, very high and outstanding performances that we have seen here. And all of it performed by the children and the teachers of this great school. Congratulations.
And speaking at the same event, Professor Stephen Simukanga, who was the guest of honor, said the contribution the Chadley House School has made to the education sector cannot go unnoticed. Professor Simukanga says the school's continued growth is evidence of the trust and confidence that the public has in the institution. He said the quality of education that the school has provided over the years is unrivaled.
As we celebrate this milestone, let us reflect upon the mottos that have guided Chadley House School throughout its journey. I'll read 2 of them. One of them says, "Towards a bright future." And the other one says, "Investing in our future." And we have seen the future here. We had the speech from the alumni. That's the future. These mottos embody the visionary spirit that has propelled this institution to greater heights. They remind us that education is not just about acquiring knowledge. It is about nurturing young minds, empowering them to realize their full potential and equipping them with the tools necessary to create a better tomorrow.
Patrick Soko, Camnet News.
On that note, we take our commercial break, but still ahead, we have international sports news. Don't go away.
It's time! Camnet TV brings to you an exciting kid show called My Creation. Join me, Sarah Chandamagazagia, to interact with kids with special skills and talents between the age range of 9 to 17. This show will come to you every Saturday at 13:30 on Camnet TV, not just another channel.
Join me, Amazing Katamanda, on the weekly gospel show for those exciting and interesting interviews with your favorite gospel
Hold on to me when it's too dark to see. You cannot put your power back to
Hallelujah. And this time around, we are bringing to you entertainment news and the countdown, as you guys are able to nominate your top 3 favorite music videos of the week. Remember, it's every Saturday at 10:45. You can also catch repeats every Monday at 10 hours. Camnet TV is not just another time.
And now in international news, large unaccounted numbers of Sudanese refugees who flowed into Libya to escape the ongoing fighting in their country are still living in temporary accommodation. Sudanese refugee Noah Ishmael came with his family from Khartoum, hoping to find a safe haven for his family in Libya's capital, Tripoli. He was able to escape the war and reach Libya safely last May. Sudan has been rocked by violence since April 15, when tensions between the military and the paramilitary rapid support forces burst into open fighting. For more in international news, we have a roundup for you.
The conflict raging in Sudan has displaced over 3.1 million people, the UN estimates. Among those forced to leave all they knew behind, some fled to Libya. These refugees found no accommodation. They are holding medical reports in front of the UNHCR headquarters in Tripoli. Noor Ismail is one of them. He came with his family from Khartoum. We arrived in Libya safely, thank God. We were suffering in Sudan. We fled the war. We came here on the 3rd day of May and we went to the UNHCR. They did not care about us. They did not even notice our presence. We eat from the streets. Some people feed us while we're on the streets. In addition to difficulties to support himself, Ismail has to do with an injury suffered in the war. He says he needs an urgent operation on his leg to save it from amputation and calls for help. We want the United Nations to pay attention to our problems. We pray they'll provide us with a place to shelter us. We, as Sudanese refugees, have come here to apply for asylum, and we do not want to stay here. We'd go anywhere safe. Sudan has been rocked by violence since April, when tensions between the military and the paramilitary RSF group burst into open fighting. The conflict has killed over 3,000 people according to data from June. The actual toll is likely underestimated.
Under the cover of the forest, these men work on T-72 tanks, some of which are older than their parents. The location is secret. It's close to the front line because these tanks need to be repaired and returned to the battlefield quickly. The methods are simple and low-tech. 21-year-old Bumper, as he is known, is a mechanic and tank driver. He's just come back from battle.
It was like raining, shells and mines on us. The field was full of craters and mines, and the commander of my unit died when his tank burned with him in it.
The work is arduous and difficult, but there's no other choice. When they're fixed and upgraded, the tanks make their way back to their positions. We're being taken to where the tank is hidden. Now, it has to be really well hidden because there's always drones up in the air where Russians can spot the position of the tank and then target it. This tank crew are getting ready in case they're called out to fight.
Everything is simpler in this tank than others.
Of course, it's better to receive the more modern Western tanks. We could then keep these in reserve. It turns out we're fighting T-72s against T-72s. The Western tanks are made to fight against these.
Tank crews are in high demand and essential to Ukraine's counter-offensive.
500 days of war have passed and I haven't seen my family. I'm not given any leave. There's no opportunity. The two sides are evenly matched and we barely managed to beat them.
When the call comes in, they have to be prepared to take positions. This part of eastern Ukraine has Russian forces on 3 sides. When firing, they have to be quick. A shell lands just meters away. They've been spotted. They manage to get away. Undercover, it's always a relief. But they know every mission could be their last. Asad Beg, Al Jazeera, near the front line, eastern Ukraine.
And finally, in sports news, the Copper Queens had a merry time with Zambians in Aotearoa Association, who hosted them for a traditional lunch to celebrate their qualification to the FIFA's Women's World Cup. The Zambian community based in New Zealand, who had the opportunity to connect with the Copper Queens, provided traditional hospitality to the Priscilla Katova-headed group.
It's really surreal to actually have these players that we revere, that we enjoy watching, actually here in the country where we are living and playing at a World Cup final, which is a huge tournament, and the fact that they're doing it, for the first time is actually quite amazing and exciting for us.
I just want to bring a special thanks to you, the Zambian community in New Zealand. We didn't expect this, but of course, as a surprise always, it gives that joy. I know the girls have been motivated beyond what they expected. And I know the girls, whenever they go on the pitch after eating shima, they scamper the whole pitch the 90 minutes. Doctor, I can assure you, if you prepared this shima a day before the Japanese game, then you are going to see wonders. Like the Nigerians say, wonders shall never end. You could have seen that. But all the same, I want to say thank you so much. This was a morale booster to the girls, because I think they ate in shima some time back. And coming through here, I think it was a blessing. And I think they are calling it a blessing. So we appreciate you. The ladies, those hands that prepared the shima, our staple food, may God richly bless the hands.
And you are behind you. We are a small number here, but we'll be with you throughout. And we'll be there cheering you up. And from the time I've seen you play, you're just an incredible. You've got a wonderful coaching team. So don't get distracted by some little things which are coming here and then forget about them. The focus is to win the game. The focus is to be together.
On that note, we take another look at the stories that made the headlines. A village headman in Central Province allegedly devours a 14-year-old girl, and the UPND challenged to take responsibility over the issue of cadres. And in international news, Sudanese refugees in Libya ask for UN for help. And in sports news, Zambians in Aotearoa Association host traditional lunch for the Copper Queens. Before we go, we now look at today's Camnet verse of the day, which comes from the book of Psalms, chapter 31, verse 19. And it says, how abundant are the good things that you have stored up for those who fear you, that you bestow in the sight of all on those who take refuge in you. That's it. That's all we had for the news at 12. Don't forget to join us for another bulletin at exactly 19:30. But don't go away, because up next is the Lunchtime Cafe.
Water is life. Each drop counts and each must be cherished. Our tried and tested product meets all international standards. With our smart drip technology, we aim to deliver precision irrigation designed to reduce blockage and wastage, ensuring a high yield. Renglow, your smart irrigation partner.
Akora kansheko alakula chancha mukero kula chekerera uchomwana nani nanga navabutuka uwinge wamuna katika sambenani ingata mwishire pekani tuipushe vana fia sasa ushe umwana nanyina ingana vabutuka uwinge wamuna katika sambenani mwe ipushe ina ipushe nyabo mwikere nabo.
For immediate coverage of any breaking or latest news in Zambia and around the world on Camnet television, call the numbers on your screen. Camnet television, bringing to your screens fair news, impartial news, credible and reliable news all the time. Get the whole truth on Camnet World News. Camnet Television, not just another channel. For immediate coverage of any breaking or latest news in Zambia and around the world on Camnet television, call the numbers on your screen. Camnet television, bringing to your screens fair news, impartial news, credible and reliable news all the time. Get the whole truth on Camnet World News. Camnet Television, not just another channel. For immediate coverage of any breaking or latest news in Zambia and around the world on Camnet television, call the numbers on your screen. Camnet television, bringing to your screens fair news, impartial news, credible and reliable news all the time. Get the whole truth on Camnet World News. Camnet television, not just another channel.
Water is life. Each drop counts and each must be cherished. Our tried and tested product meets all international standards. With our smart drip technology, we aim to deliver precision irrigation designed to reduce blockage and wastage, ensuring a high yield. RenGlow, your smart irrigation partner. Water is life. Each drop counts and each must be cherished. Our tried and tested product meets all international standards. With our smart drip technology, we aim to deliver precision irrigation designed to reduce blockage and wastage, ensuring a high yield. RenGlow, your smart irrigation partner. Water is life. Each drop counts and each must be cherished. Our tried and tested product meets all international standards. With our smart drip technology, we aim to deliver precision irrigation designed to reduce blockage and wastage, ensuring a high yield. RenGlow, your smart irrigation partner. Water is life. Each drop counts and each must be cherished. Our tried and tested product meets all international standards. With our smart drip technology, we aim to deliver precision irrigation designed to reduce blockage and wastage, ensuring a high yield. RenGlow, your smart irrigation partner.
Hello there, it's another blessed Monday. Welcome to another exciting edition of the Lunchtime Cafe on Camnet TV. My name is Marco Kwakos. Now, this is a program that comes to you at 12 hours every Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. We bring to you nothing but what is happening around us in this country as regards current affairs, entertainment, and of course not forgetting sports. Now, today's program is fully packed. We do have quite a number of issues that are coming up, and later on the program we're going to be joined by Patrick Soko just to help us look at some of the issues that are being discussed on this particular program today. And also later on we are going to be opening the phone lines so that you can also give us what you think about what we are looking at today on this particular program. But we start with emerging stories. That's our first segment on this particular program. It will be followed by a segment we call the Forgotten Stories, just to remind you of what used to happen in those days. And also we give you another segment which we call the Viewers' Reactions, so that you can react to some of the stories that we are looking at today. So before we get into the nitty-gritties of the emerging stories, let's take a short break, and when we come back, we get straight into it.
Get all the latest updates in court news only on Camnet TV. We take you and make you feel part of the court sessions through our in-depth coverage of the adjudication process. Get informed on those that have been arrested, delayed and denied the police bond or bail victims, persons taking plea, court adjournments, verdicts, and those administration issues in the judiciary. Camnet TV is on channel 274 on DSTV, channel 25 on GoTV, and find us on channel 106 on Topstar. You can also follow and give us a like on our social media platforms. Camnet TV, not just another channel.
Welcome. Now we are on a segment that we call the emerging stories. Now on this segment we give you stories that we feel could make the cut on the 1930 evening news on Camnet TV. So we do give you some developing stories from all over the country, and we do have our reporters that are on the ground and giving us this particular information. And let's start with a story which says a Zambian seed company has called on farmers to ensure that they put into consideration climate change as they prepare for the forthcoming planting season. Speaking in an exclusive interview with Camnet News, Zambezi Seed Corporate Affairs Director Evans Ngoma said farmers must understand which crops and varieties to plant in order to not to make a loss. Mr. Ngoma says farmers must be in constant touch with the meteorological department and the extension officers in their areas. He says it is important for farmers to understand the climatic conditions and plant improved seed varieties that will give them the desired results. Now, Mr. Ngoma says farmers play a key role in ensuring food security, hence the need for them to have the necessary information. Let's have a look at this.
As we are closing in the 2023-2024 farming season, we would like to urge farmers to be cautious of what kind of seed they must plant. And before they even do that, they should pay attention to the periodic weather forecast being released by the government institutions so that they do not miss an inch, because, you know, the weather today has been compromised due to the effect of climate change. So now we need to plant the seed that will be resilient to drought, the seed that will be resistant to diseases, the seed that will give you a yield that you desire. As Zambezi said, I think we have got these two varieties, the early and medium maturing varieties, as one of the best seeds because of their characteristics. They are drought tolerant in areas where rainfall patterns are not adequate, and then you can plant our seed in every corner of Zambia, it will still adapt. So we encourage you to ensure that you get to the nearest agriculture extension officers and inquire about how the weather is going to be.
So that is a story there talking about farmers and ensuring that they get constantly in touch with the meteorological department and other relevant departments just to ensure that they have the information they need before they get into the planting season. Now, moving on, the National Union for Public and Private Educators of Zambia, NUPEZ, has called for increased funding to the education sector in the 2024 national budget. National Executive NUPEZ Executive President Victor Muyumba says there is need for the country to actually to actualize the vocational path in the sector. He says for this to be achieved, there is need to put up infrastructure and equipment in schools. Now, Mr. Muyumba has also called for the construction of enough houses for teachers in the country.
Let there be enough funding to actualize the vocational path. We know we have got the academic part, which is mainly bookish, but we have got the skills part, of vocational part, that is hands-on. And you can't do hands-on courses or programs or subjects without enough equipment in place. We need workshops, we need wood workshops, metal workshops in schools. We need even, this time around, we're supposed to be even talking about studios, so that even teachers of music can be doing music with their children. We need to buy music. You need to listen to music done by teachers and their children. And this is how it ought to be. That is also about talent tapping. We also are cognizant of the fact that the Ministry of Education has a number of challenges that need to be addressed. Accommodation for the teachers. There should be money there. Let's construct enough housing units for our teachers. Let's as well come up with a way of ensuring that these schools are connected to the national grid, so that teachers have got electricity where they are working from. You can imagine a teacher teaching computer studies without electricity at a school. So we need all that. And in all this, it is the government or the employer in this case that wins, because everything goes to actually add value in terms of services that are offered on behalf of the government. So this is our expectation in line with education. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's another story there we expect in our 1930 bulletin tonight. Let's move on. The next story says the Zambia National Union of Teachers says that the private sector must take advantage of the government's move to build more classroom blocks and recruitment of more teachers in rural areas by building houses that teachers can rent. Union General Secretary Isaac Ngoma says to every teacher can be accommodated in schools. I'll read that again. The Union General Secretary Isaac Ngoma says not all teachers can be accommodated in schools, hence it is important that the private sector comes on board by developing decent housing units in rural areas which their members can utilize. However, he says during the collective bargaining process, they will continue to engage the government on the need to address the issue of accommodation for teachers.
At the moment, we are concerned that we don't have adequate accommodation in especially rural areas for the teachers. When you rate the government and the premium that they've placed on the education sector, we feel that there is a lot of hope that is given. But looking at the population and the resource envelope and where we're trying to mobilize these resources, we've continued to talk to government. But we also want to extend this for the private sector and indeed individuals to seize the opportunity and put up houses, because in rural areas where the government is putting up, classroom schools, classroom space, expanding classroom space under the CDF project, there are new teachers that are being deployed and posted there. So they seize the opportunity, because our teachers so far, what we've done ourselves as Labour Movement is to ensure that we bargain for housing allowance. So those that are not accommodated in institutional accommodation, they get housing allowance, which should be able to get them to rent decent accommodation. Although when we look at the amount of money that they would get when you compare with certain towns like Lusaka, it may not be much. They may not get accommodation that matches their standard. But it's something that we are continuously talking with government, and we hope that as we open negotiations this year, it's one of the issues that we must address.
Matero Member of Parliament Miles Sampa has withdrawn as surety of Lusaka businessman Francis Muchelwa, popularly known as Commander 2. When the matter came up this morning, Mr. Sampa told the magistrate Chimbwiri that he was withdrawing as surety of the accused due to some circumstances beyond his control. This is in a matter in which Muchelwa is accused of possession of property worth over 12 million suspected to be proceeds of crime. Magistrate Chimbwili has since ruled that the accused will remain in custody till he meets his bail conditions. And still in court news, a National Democratic Congress leader, Savoy Imboela, has been found with a case to answer in a matter in which she is accused of issuing derogatory remarks against the State House communications specialist Clayson Hamasaka. Ms. Imboela was found with a case to answer this morning and has since been put on her defense. In this case, the state has slapped NDC leader Savoy Imboela with 2 counts of libel contrary to section 191 of the Penal Code, chapter 8 of the laws of Zambia. She is alleged to have, on the 9th of September 2022, published defamatory matters against the State House Chief Communication Specialist Clayson Hamasaka on her Facebook page, alleging that Mr. Hamasaka was developing his farm using corrupt means and is a ghost taking advantage of women who were seeking jobs under the UPND. Now, our staffer, Miriam Kaemba, is at the courts and forwarding this report.
Coming from the court this morning, we have seen the National Democratic Congress leader, Ms. Savoy Imboela, appearing before the Lusaka Magistrate Court. This is in relation to a matter where she is accused of issuing derogatory remarks against State House communications specialist, Mr. Clayson Hamasaka. Ms. Imboela was alleged to have issued these remarks on a Facebook page in 2022. Quite interesting, she has been found with a case to answer by Magistrate Sylvia Munyinya and has since been placed on her defense. She is expected to commence a defense next month in August, and we are looking forward to that. Anyway, we will continue to keep you updated on that matter. Another matter that we saw from the court this morning is coming from a Lusaka businessman, Mr. Francis Muchelwa, who is also known as Commander 2. Mr. Muchelwa, here in this case, he is charged with being in possession of property suspected of being proceeds of crime worth over 12 million kwacha. Quite interesting is in this matter, what transpired this morning today is that one of his surety, who is Matero Area Member of Parliament, Mr. Miles Sampa, has withdrawn from being Mr. Muchelwa's surety, and the court has since, given an order that Mr. Muchelwa will remain, or rather be detained, until he meets his bail condition, meaning that he needs to find another surety to replace Mr. Miles Sampa. Another interesting story that we have seen is coming from the court again is one involving the former Deputy Inspector General of Police, Mrs. Charity Katanga, who has also been found with a case to answer. This is in relation to the 10 Haiger buses that she is accused of possessing, which are deemed to be proceeds of crime and are worth over $2 million United States dollars and 1.5 million kwacha. We will keep you updated on how these matters will unfold before the courts of law. As it stands now, the matter or the cases stands adjourned.
Thank you very much, Miriam. So that was Miriam Kaimba just giving us an update on what is happening at the courts this morning into the afternoon. And we do also hope to see the details, stories from the courts at 19:30 today, as we expect our menus to come at that particular time. So now moving on, we are now going to be getting into the forgotten stories. But before we do that, let's take a quick break. We'll be back shortly.
It's time! Camnet TV brings to you an exciting kid show called My Creation. Join me, Sarah Chandamangazagya, to interact with kids with special skills and talents between the age range of 9 to 17. This show will come to you every Saturday at 13:30 on Camnet TV, not just another channel.
Welcome back. So that was our Emerging Stories segment, just to giving you some of the stories that are developing that we expect to see at 19:30 this evening on our menus. Let's move on now to the Forgotten Stories segment. Now, this is a segment where we take you back in time just to remind you of what used to happen some time back. Now, we start in 2020. Now, in 2020, during this period, cases of COVID-19 had continued rising in the country. Now, this worried government, and they put up measures to try and prevent the further spread of the virus. Let's listen to this.
The effects of COVID-19 are still very high, posing health danger in many people, especially those that live in densely populated areas or failing to observe the norms of the new normal. Health Minister Dr. Chitalu Chilufya on the floor of Parliament revealed that the death toll for COVID-19 deaths has risen to 108 since the first case of the COVID-19 was recorded in March this year. Dr. Chilufya also told the nation through Parliament that 190 new positive cases have been recorded, of which 22 are in a critical condition under oxygen support.
Allow me to update this august House on the current COVID-19 situation in the country. And as we speak today, 17th July 2020, Zambia did record 190 new cases of COVID-19. And this was out of 848 cases. Mr. Speaker, these cases have been picked through routine community screening, healthcare facility-based screening, contacts to those who are already positive, a few health workers, and those who have been brought in already dead. Mr. Speaker, the cumulative number of COVID-19 cases has gone up to 2,620, and this is out of 67,096 tests done since the outbreak of the COVID-19. The number of recoveries on a positive note has been 1,434. Mr. Speaker, on a sad note, I'd like to report a total number of 108 deaths that are linked with COVID-19. With the revision of the definition of a COVID death by the World Health Organization, Mr. Speaker, Zambia has revised its figures as follows. Out of 108 deaths, 84 died within the community, and these were brought in dead. 85 of the 108 deaths have been classified already, and 22 are classified as COVID deaths.
In response to a point of order that was raised by United Party for National Development, Monze Member of Parliament Jack Mwimbo on whether it was in order for Patriotic Front cadres to continue meeting in large numbers against the COVID-19 regulations, Dr. Chilufya indicated that nothing has changed. In fact, the laws have been stiffened to enable people to follow the health guidelines. The minister then said it is government's desire to ensure that lives are protected, hence the need for anyone to take their part in the fight against COVID-19. He says people should not be relent in making sure that they mask up, observe social distancing of at least 1 meter to avoid the spread of the pandemic.
The highest priority of the Patriotic Front Party government, under the stewardship of His Excellency President Edgar Chagwa Lungu, is to ensure health for all. Succinctly put, universal health coverage, health for everyone, everywhere. As part of this agenda, Mr. Speaker, protection of the public from public health emergencies such as COVID-19 ranks high on the priority list. To this effect, Mr. Speaker, the Public Health Act was invoked, particularly sections 28, 30, and 114, chapter 295 of the laws of Zambia, to ensure that measures are put in place to protect the public from COVID-19. Mr. Speaker, this was all in the aspiration to prevent and suppress COVID-19. Mr. Speaker, the response plan that government had put in place was adjustable and was informed by the evolution of the pandemic. To this effect, statutory instrument 21 and 22 were invoked, and thereafter statutory instrument number 62 of 2020 was invoked, and this particularly referred to restriction on public health gatherings.
Sharon Kalimbula, Camnet News, Lusaka.
Now, in the same year 2020, the Electoral Commission of Zambia had embarked on an online pre-registration exercise for voters. Now, this particular exercise had raised some concern among stakeholders. Let's have a look at this.
As months, weeks and days draw closer to 2021, a defining year in Zambia's electoral process, most stakeholders have become aware and vigilant to ensure that the electoral body ECZ responds to the needs of the people. The Electoral Commission of Zambia, as of yesterday, began an online voter pre-registration exercise, which, according to them, will allow more voters to register in time. On this platform, eligible voters are required to submit their details online and collecting their voter's card at the designated collection centers, which will be open when the physical registration begins. But this technological initiative by ECZ has been rejected by some stakeholders who think it may breed chaos at a later stage.
The proposed 30 days voters registration period is insufficient time in order to capture all eligible citizens, and also given the importance of citizens' participations in the elections. We further find that the Electoral Commission of Zambia has not been undertaking continuous voter registration, so the 30 days period cannot stand because the period is not enough. ZCLAB further finds that the voters registration, the first-time voters registration online is inappropriate because that might lead to the compromised results as well as a dispute. The online registration, we find it inappropriate because it does not provide for credential physical credential validation. And so to ensure a rabbit-proof electoral system, the Electoral Commission of Zambia must do a physical credential validation, especially for the first-time voters. I think our systems are not foolproof, and so to allow for online registration, it might compromise the result of the 2021 elections.
The Anti-Voter Apathy Project Executive Director Richua Mulwani says technology has come to stay and people should embrace it, but that there is need to consider those in rural areas, or the process may be a waste of time for the Commission.
When you look at the rural outfit, the rural areas, it's very, very difficult for people to be able to do this online voter registration. So it means that those in the rural areas, and even here in the urban, some of us who don't know how to use that technology, but of course we need further explanation as to how one can start the whole process. It's very, very difficult for people in the rural to understand this or to do this because of the challenges that we have in terms of the network and also the kind of a tool. Someone has to be familiar with it, someone has to really study it and then see that it is workable. Otherwise it will be an issue where surely the tool is there, but then many people may not even utilize it. But however, we are saying technology has come to stay, and we must take advantage of it and ensure that we are able to try it. As some of us who have already registered, I think something worth trying.
The online pre-registration platform, which they are calling the beta testing phase, will run from 18th to 25th July 2020. Sharon Kalimbula, Camnet News, Lusaka.
Now, in the same year 2026, some teacher graduates had protested in a bid to attract government attention so that they could be employed. Let's have a look at this.
High levels of unemployment coupled with increased students graduating from higher learning institutions has choked some teacher graduates who on Friday protested in a bid to air their displeasure and possibly attract government attention. The graduates from various graduating schools could not be stopped by the guidelines of the new normal, such as masking up, as well as maintaining a social distancing. Steve Mumba, one of the protesters, says government should hear their plea and employ teachers now and not wait for 2021 election year, as this will be deemed as a ploy to woo the votes by government.
Demanding for a massive recruitment of teachers because in the past 3 years we've not had recruitment by teachers. So we have a lot of teachers in the street, we have a lot of them graduating, so we cannot afford to have recruitment. Of course, we are reading in newspapers, other departments are being recruited, talk of healthy, defense, ZNS, and so on. So even as teachers this time around, we are demanding for a massive recruitment of teachers. Not 2,000 like in the year 2018. That was not enough. We are a lot. So this time around, we are demanding a recruitment of over 10,000 in 2020, not 2021. We understand that the government has got a lot of problems to attend to, and teacher recruitment is one of those problems. So it is a government. We are seeing a lot of projects, roads, hospitals being built. For this time around, we expect the government to pause a little bit and deploy teachers. We are ready to teach anywhere, anyhow.
The students who graduated for at least 4 to 5 years now also need the Ministry of General Education to be transparent in the replacement process of recruiting teachers.
Funding for a replacement that must be free and fair. We have just been hearing people posting on Facebook, they've been employed or they've been deployed and then they've been posted somewhere. But wherever this process is taking place, some of us are not aware. And we know for sure to say that in a democratic state, there has to be something that is free and fair. All the processes must be known. So if at all we are having people that are getting employed and we are not aware of the process and nothing is made to the public, then that becomes unfair. And our cry to the people and those that are responsible, the authorities, is that please, can you make sure that these processes are well defined and the system should be followed?
We decided to do something that is going to at least put food on our table and make us to pay back, to give back to those people who assisted us to be enrolled, to go through colleges and universities and attend the knowledge that we have. Please hear our cry.
Efforts to get a comment from the Ministry of General Education on this matter proved futile by broadcast time. Sharon Kalimbula, Camnet News, Lusaka.
Now, in 2021, during this period, government had announced a debt swap for the civil servants. Now, this news was welcomed by some sectors of society, whilst some had a lot of concerns about it. Let's have a look at this.
The Professional Teachers Union of Zambia has commended the move by government to halt the deduction from civil servant salaries for the next 3 months. Pro-2 Secretary General Mr. Kangwamsenge has described the move by government as milestone and should be welcomed by all members of the civil service.
The civil servants, including our members, the teachers, will no longer suffer those deductions. Beginning this month, we are extremely very delighted in the first place. All what we're expecting now to consume the contractual obligation of our members by government itself, and we are working towards that. But we also caution them that beginning now, they should desist from obtaining loans unnecessarily. I know there are a lot of issues which came up why they were borrowing, simply because they had gone for studies. 60% of the teachers, even the public service, had gone for studies for their degrees and for their master's degrees. And they are hoping to be upgraded, which we now need to work on. I think we need to equalize the debt swap so that they are also upgraded, so that they seal. We appreciate them through that. I think that's a very, very important thing.
Mr. Msenga has clarified that the debt swap went through a number of consultations, therefore it should not be mistaken for a mere political stand by government as some claim.
I don't think it's a political gimmick. It will only be a political gimmick if we did not actualize it. But this is a thing which is there, and the teachers should receive it. We have read from yesterday a lot of comments that there is a fear factor now that come after 3 months the government won't pay. I don't think that is the position. We have put down a legal arena on how we are going to deal with this matter. The government has taken responsibility, and we will see to it. There will be engagement between the unions and the government so that we don't slip back to square one.
Yesterday, July 16, 2021, the government and the public sector unions signed an agreement on the implementation of the debt swap for the civil service effective month end of July. Alex Shimba, Camnet News, Lusaka.
According to Newton's third law of motion, every action has an opposite or equal reaction. The announcement by government that it has signed an addendum for a debt swap with civil servants, specifically teachers in the country, sounds like a good move which some stakeholders have received with open arms. But what are the consequences of such an action in the near future is the question that most Zambian citizens would like to know. United Party for National Development Alliance partner Tabo Kawana says the announcement of a debt swap is a trap which civil servants should not rejoice about.
This is a government that owes retirees, for example. Have they given the retirees the money? No. Why are they owing the retirees? Because of the same system of deducting money meant to go to the pensions funds, meant to go to NAPSA. And they deduct, and your payslip shows that the money has been deducted to be taken to ZHA, to NAPSA, to pensions. And when you go there after you've retired, zero. There's nothing they didn't take.
Mr. Kawana has gone further to explain the consequences of such an action.
Ladies and gentlemen, an addendum is clearer details that are given to an existing contract. Which existing contract does government have to pay loans on behalf of the civil servants? The existing contract that they have is an MOU where they've been appointed as agents to be able to collect money from the civil servants' payroll and remit it to the third party.
It has since challenged the government to indicate where the resources it has been deducting from the indebted civil servant has been going, considering that financial institutions have not been receiving any monies from the government, yet it has been deducting.
Where is the money you have been deducting for these people? What you need to come and do and say today is to the civil servant, we have been deducting money from your salary, meant to pay for your loan, but since we have not been paying for the loan, what we'll do is that we will gather the money together and give it to the banks and the financial institutions where you owe money in a lump sum. From the day we started cutting to today, the whole lump sum will be paid.
And UPND Media Director Ruth Dante says the current government is not concerned about the lives of the Zambian citizen, hence the decision not to follow the advice of the UPND leader Hakainde Hichilema that COVID-19 be declared a national disaster.
Our economy today, people are living in fear. That is a disaster which needs immediate attention and proper management in order to save their lives. We are aware that as it is right now, we are standing at 183,344 cases. Meanwhile, we have 3,022 deaths. That is too much for this country. And
while Zambia is headed for a general election 25 days from now, the future of the country goes beyond the general elections. Prudence Chota, reporting for Camnet TV News.
Thank you very much. So those are the stories that we picked from the Forgotten Stories basket, just to remind you of what used to happen in those days, as we give you stories from 2020 and of course 2021. So those are the stories that were trending at those particular days. Moving on, we get into the next segment, and now in this segment we give you, the viewers, an opportunity to get in touch with us on the numbers that are on your screens. You can call us or you can go to our Facebook page, Camnet TV, and then go to this particular broadcast on that page. It is actually streaming live, and then we you can leave your comments there. We are going to be very happy to see what you think about what we are discussing this beautiful afternoon. Alternatively, you can go to your WhatsApp on the phone and send those voice notes or videos or messages to 0962 444 726. That's 0962 444 726. Now that is strictly for WhatsApp, so you can only send WhatsApp messages to that particular line. You can send your videos to that line. You can send your WhatsApp voice notes to that particular line only. Now, if you want to call us, you can call us on 0973167840. That's the number that you can call us on if you want to speak to us live on TV. Now, we have been joined by Patrick Soko. Patrick is here to give us his analysis or thoughts on some of the stories that we are carrying on this beautiful day. Patrick, thank you very much. It's always nice to have you on this program. Welcome.
Thank you very much for hosting me.
Now, we have quite a number of interesting stories that are emerging that we do expect to see in our menus tonight. We do have an interesting story talking about farmers and how getting to know the weather patterns and everything to do with the weather, so that as they grow their plants, they don't make mistakes. We also have another story, Nupes talking about money going to infrastructure development in the education sector so as to promote the vocational path in schools. We also did have another interesting story from Zanut, where they are saying the government's move to build more classroom blocks and recruit more teachers. The private sector must tap into this opportunity and build houses for teachers to rent. And also we do have a very interesting update coming in from the courts as sent by our staffer Miriam, who is at the courts. Quickly, take us through your thoughts on some of these particular stories.
Which one do you want us to start with?
I think let's get to start with the education sector.
Well, interesting stories there pertaining to the education sector. One story pertaining to the Zambia National Teachers Union, Zambia National Union of Teachers, Zanut, where they're talking about issues pertaining to accommodation. As you already know, Kozi, we have seen the recruitment of teachers by this administration. And the recruitment of 30,000 teachers, for instance, previously is a milestone in the education sector, something that has never been done before. Now, if you look at that development, it means that there is also a demand for accommodation, and that's we're talking about decent accommodation for these civil servants, in that when they go to far-flung areas, like especially in the rural setting, we have to make sure that they are able to find facilities that they can access in terms of accommodation. So that is an important aspect that we cannot ignore or overlook, because at the end of the day, where are the teachers going to be sleeping? Another important aspect is the proximity to the school and the residential area for the teachers. It is also important. So other teachers may be accommodated within the school, others may not be accommodated. So when you look at that, it is, I think, what the union was actually trying to illustrate is that the private sector can also tap into that opportunity by also taking development there, and investing in the housing, real estate facilities. That helps people to be able to have decent housing. At the end of the day, we have done stories where teachers living in glass-thatched houses. That tends to demoralize the teachers. You can imagine you are a teacher and your living condition is not well off, and sometimes that tends to discourage teachers from living in rural areas, because sometimes it is just too difficult to handle altogether. So that is an important development cause that we need to look at and also explore and see how can we make sure that we continuously develop accommodation. I understand that the government has been doing that, and even in the past we saw that the government would develop a school and also make sure that the same school has teachers accommodation within the premises, so the teachers do not have to start going to far-flung areas to just after teaching. So that tends to discourage teachers, but the aspect of making sure that accommodation, decent accommodation is near to the school is also vital.
So that is just but one of the stories that we are looking at this morning, and it talks to infrastructure development in the education sector so that the teachers can be comfortable even as they teach in rural areas. Let's move on. The other story speaks to infrastructure itself in schools, because NUPES feel that there is need to start shifting or to start putting some attention to issues to do with vocational training and try to accommodate pupils that may not be as good in school, but maybe they have talents. This could help those students.
Yes, so we have been talking about issues pertaining to the revision of the national curriculum, education curriculum, and that has been a very important aspect of that. We have to make sure that we continuously explore avenues or areas in terms of making sure that how are we making sure that this education sector system is responsive to the needs and the challenges that we are facing at the moment as a country. Now, if we are able to address those pertinent issues, I think we'll be able to make a very great milestone in terms of us making sure that everyone else feels part and parcel of the education system. At the end of the day, because you and I know very best that not everyone can be gifted in terms of understanding the figures, like let's say mathematics and these other formulas. Others may not be very gifted, and that does not mean they are not intelligent enough. They are exploring, excelling in other sectors, in other fraternities. They are good in English. They are good in, let's say, music. You know, music is the subject. They are good in art. So how does the school system help that talent and be able to make sure that someone is able to earn a living at the end of the day? If you look at, for example, people like myself, because for me, my passion has always been communication, and the journalism industry does provide that. Equally yourself, well, that's why you are here. I should assume that. But you do not need to be a mathematician or a scientist for you to do what you love. But you are doing what you love at the moment. So we have to continuously explore. You can give examples of various footballers who have played a professional football, and they are rich, even better than those people who are doing, who are in white collar jobs. So now, how can we nurture this talent at school level? I understand that we have those developments. For example, at every school, we do have football teams, netball teams. They do play football. They do play sports, let me say, just to generalize. But we need to make sure that that is part and parcel of the curriculum. So someone should be able to, should be assessed based on sports. If they are good with football, because they should be assessed with that. If they are good with carpentry, let them be assessed with that. If they are good with is it GMD? Those who are supposed to do desk, make desk and everything. Those who are good in agriculture science. You know, all those things need to make sure that we prioritize them, we support them, and we should not disqualify candidates based on their inability to understand science and or probably mathematics. We should be able to give an opportunity to everyone who has a talent. And that way, when we're talking about the education system, then it will be responsive and addressing to the various needs. You can imagine if Zambia is exporting, let's say, 20 players in Europe every year that are playing in the major leagues. It means that's development, because you can see even the little support, for example, our players who have been able to play their trade outside Zambia. You see they have been able to, others have been able to contribute to the development of the communities where they are coming from. You know, let's say the likes of Patson Daka. They are contributing in the areas they are coming from. But you can imagine if you export more people and they are bringing that foreign exchange when they are coming back to invest in their country of origin. It means a lot of development. If you see other countries like, let's say, where I admire, for example, the likes of Sadio Mane, when you see the way the investment is making in his village, Kozi, you'll be amazed to see, but what is that? It's just the talent that he has. And nurturing a talent is not that complicated. It just needs the necessary support. But you know, we haven't reached that stage as a country, because I still understand that we still have parents who are skeptical about taking allowing their children to explore their talent. For example, if you go and play football, they'll tell you, hello, ukabwira wachoka chikwendo icho uzafikiri. For me, I think that is the term, for example, I used to get every day from home. They will tell you that if you are going to play football, you are doing that at your own peril, and when you come back home with an injury, make sure that before facing that injury, you have to first of all be whipped, you know, so that you should never go back to play football, for example. But now we have realized that, for example, let's say countries like Brazil, and look at how many stars they're exporting. We can equally do the same. You understand? So if we are able to see beyond that as we reform our curriculum, I think we can make a lot of progress as a nation.
So that is just one of the stories that we are looking at this particular afternoon. And also, if you have any thoughts on the stories that we are looking at, you can call us on the number 0973167840. we will be more than happy to receive that particular call. So 0973167840. The number is there on your screens. You can dial that particular number and get in touch with us and give us your thought on what we are looking at. Another story that is coming up is that of seats and looking at, sorry, let's get to the courts first. There are interesting stories. Miriam Kayamba brought us from the courts. We have heard that the Matero MP has withdrawn being a surety for Francis Muchemwa, and another interesting story that comes from the courts, NDC leader Savoy Imboela has been found with a case to answer.
Interesting story indeed that is coming from the courts there. But the take home there is, well, we have to wait and see how the court unfolds. But this is not a new case, a case involving Madam Savoy Imboela and State House Communication Specialist Clayson Hamasaka. The story started quite a long time ago, and they have been going back and forth through the court processes. Now she has been found with a case to answer. Now we're going to hear what will be the verdict or what's the way forward on that judgment. But whatever the case, it just reminds us, even as we do our politics, that we need to make sure that we are rational in our as much as we make these comments, especially bordering on individuals. I don't have to make sure that because I injure your emotions and I undermine your integrity, because at the end of the day, when you take legal action, sometimes things may not go as expected to me, because those are the things that the court also takes very seriously, because they follow the law. So at the end of the day, when we are following the law dictates whether you have a case to answer or not. So these are serious matters that are border on issues pertaining to defamation, because that's where that story is bordering. It is a story where Madam Imboela was making various serious allegations pertaining to Mr. Hamasaka and utilizing the Chinese to be redeveloping his farm, and that was, according to Madam Imboela, was tantamount to abusing authority and taking advantage by Mr. Clayson Hamasaka, who felt aggrieved to say, but why are you accusing me? And among the allegations was that there was issues related to sexual scandals, and Mr. Hamasaka was not pleased with those remarks, and he said, okay, let me clear my name, because these are serious allegations you are making, so let me see if I can make sure that I just clear myself before the courts, so that if at all I was really doing those things, let the court determine whether you are right or I'm wrong, or vice versa. Now, this is now the job of the courts, because we cannot dwell much into the other details that may be prejudicial. But what we understand is that this case now, Madam Imboela has been found with a case to answer, well, it becomes very, very serious.
Let's now look at agriculture. We have heard that farmers have been advised to ensure that they understand the climatic conditions in the areas that they are in, and also they should consider visiting the Met to just know when the rains will intensify, when the first rains will come, and get to understand all those things, and also speak to the agriculture extension officers in their areas for help as they do their agriculture. That's the story that is coming from Zambezi.
Just to try to marry this with the other aspect I was giving you pertaining to the story we looked at pertaining to revising the school curriculum. Are you aware that the books are still saying Southern Africa is the food basket of Zambia?
Sure.
Are you aware?
Sure.
But is that still the case?
No, but you see, that is why I really agree with you when you say that we need to update and revise the curriculum. We need to move with time. Yeah. And even the weather itself is not as it was 20, 30 years ago. Yes. So it could have been, Zambia could have been the food basket for the region those days, because we had a favorable weather, but things are changing.
Yeah, so if you look now, Southern Province is not as productive as it used to be in the past, but it used to produce a lot in terms of maize, name it. But now it is no longer, because if you see the rainfall pattern has been very unpredictable. Sometimes no rains at all, sometimes little or no rains during the season. Sometimes we have heat waves within the same season, and we have these things that tend to complicate the production of our crops. So at the end of the day, we need to continuously be revising, because that information may not be accurate this time around. So we have to make sure that we change that. But if you look at the Northern Circuit, the Northern Circuit has not been lacking in terms of rainfall. So it tells you that when it comes to farming and everything, there's also a future there. But how do we make sure that we also make sure that the people of that same locality appreciate that that advantage and exploit to be able to maximize its potential is also something we need to do as a country collectively. However, like the advice that was given there by Mr. Evans, is in Ngoma. Yes, he's bringing out quite interesting developments, Mr. Kozi. In that, as farmers, it is important that we understand the geographical location of where we are, and we understand the type of soil. It is no wonder if you understand the type of soil, you'll be able to plant the right seed. You'll be able to utilize the plant at the right time. So now, if you do not understand the crop or the soil within the region where you are, I don't think it is easier for you to do the right thing. You may be doing things based on guessing. Maybe my neighbor is because my neighbor is doing it. Maybe I can also do it.
Sure.
So sorry, but that advice is always timely. But no wonder we have extension officers under the Ministry of Agriculture, and the government has recruited some, and they continue to recruit more, and stakeholders continue to recommend that we recruit more extension officers. This is an important development of the agriculture sector, in that those extension officers, COSI, have a duty to educate smallholder farmers on these issues pertaining to climate change. You understand? Because climate change, first of all, which is defined as the change in weather pattern over time, in terms of it takes a long period of time, and it means, for example, in terms of rains, in terms of how we are experiencing the heat waves, the frequency of droughts, how the composition of the ecosystem is changing over time. So that defines what climate change is. And when we look at that, over time things are changing. So we have to continuously be engaging and informing ourselves to say, is this crop going to grow if I'm with this type of soil? But you wonder, we have extension officers whom we can consult to. We also have non-state actors who are working in the agriculture sector that can assist us to be able to know the right crop to plant at what time and what season. No wonder understanding the climatic conditions of your area becomes vital, especially that now we are going towards the 2023-2024 farming season, and now we'll soon be going to the planting season. We already heard, for example, that others have already started planting, and the stakeholders are already calling on the government to expedite the process of distributing the farming inputs. So all those developments point to the fact that we have to make sure that we get to prepare in all angles.
So that is the analysis on the stories that are emerging, the developing stories that we expect to make the cut in our 1930 evening news today. Moving on, quickly, in 2020 we had an interesting story as regards the rising numbers of COVID-19. Also, we had the Electoral Commission of Zambia going into online voter registration, pre-voter registration exercise, and also some teachers were protesting, some graduates, unemployed teachers were protesting to say we have been here for a while now, no recruitments. Kindly recruit us, government. Your quick analysis on these stories, and of course not forgetting the debt swap that made so much noise in 2021.
Well, starting with the debt swap, arrangement was also deemed as a political story in 2020, because if you see, it is not a case that most of the civil servants are highly indebted. And if you look at, for example, the mechanisms they have, is that they have access, for example, to get a house loan. They also have provisions to get, you can buy a car with your loans. So most of the teachers, for example, depending on your preference, you say, I need a vehicle, I need to get a loan. Most of the teachers, most of the nurses, the doctors, those who are in the civil service, most of them were highly indebted. So now, how do you cushion these people? So now, there was a concern that, so the government wanted to make sure that they get that debt, they swap the debt, then that the government takes over that debt and be able to pay those the people, the financial institutions they are owing, and then the government in turn starts deducting from these teachers. Now, the interesting development there is that at the time it was being done during prior towards the elections. And various stakeholders, they raised suspicion that this was a political gimmick, in that the government wanted to exchange that debt with a vote, because a civil servant was going to feel relieved. Let's say, like this government is feeling relieved with the debt restructuring process. That's like the same arrangement that was the debt, with the debt swap. Now, looking at the debt swap now, it raised a lot of concerns there at the time, because stakeholders were concerned that this was being done to wink civil servants into making sure that they vote for then the Patriotic Front administration. These are concerns that were being raised by opposition political party leaders. And we look at this aspect of the debt swap, Cozy. We saw, like, for example, in that story that you played, we had then was the media director for the MDC, Mr. Tabokawan. He was expressing also concerns that why should they get a debt swap now, given that even the same workers, the managements haven't been submitting the money to NAPSA, ZRA, to statutory bodies. How is that debt swap worth? You understand? A lot of concerns, but we made a lot of progress on this debt swap, and there was assurance from the government and everything. So I think the next story we still need to do as the media, and one that I always remind you, because on this platform, that this platform reminds us to do more and go back to the archives and be able to say, how was it ended? We need closure on this, but is it something that we can still think about in the future? We need to see if it's something we can still look at in the future, or it's something we need to bury and forget about it. Is the debt swap possible under the United Party for National Development Administration? Is a question we can ask them. So for me, it is an opportunity or a reminder that where we are coming from, these are some of the stories that we use to prioritize. And what happened to those stories, people still need to know if these stories have gotten closure. And that's why we have to follow it up. And that's why this segment exists, to remind us and remind the media practitioners that there are stories that still need to be worked on, that we haven't worked on. There are stories that ideas that could have been suggested that may be progressive, and they haven't been adopted. So that's what I have to say about that.
Let's move on. Remember that you are on the Lunch Cafe on Camnet TV, and you can call us on the numbers that are on your screens if you have any contributions as regards what we are discussing this beautiful afternoon. Now, we will be unfair if we go without talking about the COSAFA team that defended the trophy yesterday in South Africa.
Yes, and I have to, I'll pose the question back to you. But before I pose that to you, interesting enough, I made some words of observation. The Zambia were picked as the best losers of the tournament. You saw, and the best losers ended up to get the trophy. I think for me that's good. A good pickup, which the boys demonstrated, because we were not happy with the way they started the tournament. Because the truth be told, because they started sluggish and they scored themselves. The goal that we lost, the game we lost, they scored against themselves. So and we are glad that they managed to overcome that, because I was going to accuse them for match buying, match fixing, because it was that you can imagine that was something that was going to cost us. Just scoring against ourselves. But it also assured us to say we need to work on the defense aspect. The defense hasn't been very solid, and it is a learning process for me that we should make sure that we improve on the defense. Then we also saw that on the striking force, also we have to be decisive, we have to be decision makers. And we also saw that we are the new keeper after that other one received a lot of backlash pertaining to this performance. And I think you have more details pertaining to that.
Yeah, firstly, I want to start with the team qualifying to the semi-finals as best losers. This was because the tournament had 3 groups. Now to proceed to the semi-finals, you need 4 teams. So 3 teams had qualified. Now they were looking for the 4th team. So the 4th team, they were looking for a team that had conceded less, that had scored more, and all those things. So the team that was chasing Zambia on that particular slot was Mauritius, who needed to beat Mozambique by 3 goals to 0, because Zambia, remember, had scored 4 goals against Seychelles, and they had scored 2 goals against the other team. So Zambia had scored Comoros. So Zambia had scored 6 goals against was that
Seychelles?
Seychelles scored 1,
and the
Comoros scored 2, and then so they against 3. So that is how Zambia managed to pull through as best losers. They lost in the group. You only pick one, so they lost in that particular group to Malawi, who beat us in the opening game, and then they moved on because of the statistics. So statistically, Zambia qualified, and luckily in the semi-finals we beat our opponents again and qualified to the finals. Our opponents in the semis were South Africa, qualified to the finals, where we beat Lesotho yesterday. So 2-3 takeaways from that particular tournament is that we picked up a new goalkeeper. I think Francis Mwanza from Trident, a team that was just promoted last year to the Super Division, proved to be a good goalkeeper, something that you can look, a project that you can look at, considering the fact that Tosta seems to be slowing down now. Lawrence coming up, we have a new project that is coming up also in Francis. So we need to just make sure that the boy is monitored and the boy is encouraged. He might be a very good goalkeeper if all things are equal. He is showing signs of a very good goalkeeper.
Yes, for me, I think what we need to do is, like you are saying, monitored and just to be checked. You have to be supported and bring him up to speed. You see, so it should be among the subs, even when it comes to national duties.
Sure.
At senior team level, and you know, everything borders on preparation. But because he has already demonstrated signs of being a good goalkeeper, what does he need? He needs to be trained more.
Sure.
He needs more capacity to be able to handle tough games, tough matches. So I still need a lot of support, I think, but that was a good identification under Kosafa, because let me see, I think the last 2 games under him, did we concede any goals?
No, he played very well. He didn't concede any goals at the tournament, which I think is something to write about.
And he joined into the critical time of the tournament, and because the semis are always tough.
Critical, and remember we were coming from a background of silly defensive mistakes and conceding goals that schoolboy mistakes. So he came in at a point where everybody was talking about the goals that we were conceding.
Schoolboy mistakes.
Yeah, sure. But we need to go, Patrick. Our time is up. As we leave, what are your concluding remarks?
Well, my concluding remarks is that let's keep watching Camnet TV and make sure that we always follow and also contribute on various programs that we bring to you on this station. And remember that this time around we'll also be at the Agriculture and Commercial Show this year. Remember to always visit us, and we can talk business, because this time around we really mean business.
So that is it. That is what we had for you on the Lunchtime Cafe today. But don't forget to join us again tomorrow at the same time when we come with another exciting program. On behalf of the entire production team, have a blessed afternoon.